Welcome to this episode of the Conscious Business Coffee Break, where we take a few moments to explore what's happening in the conscious business movement, expand awareness, and importantly, encourage your efforts in conscious business. Greetings, everyone. I'm Stephen Tanako of the Conscious Business Enterprise, a division of Humanities team. And today, we're looking at redefining business for a post-growth world. And I was turned on to this topic by an item in The Guardian called "The EU Needs Stability and Wellbeing Pact, Not More Growth." And I just actually found out about this article recently, and it is in reference to a conference that happened this week in Europe, and 238 academics called on the European Union and its member states to plan for a post-growth future in which human and ecological well-being is prioritized over GDP, otherwise known as gross domestic product. So this week, scientists, politicians, policymakers gathered in Brussels for the conference. And the aim of the event, which was organized by members of the European Parliament from 5 different political groups, alongside trade unions and NGOs, was to explore possibilities for what's called a post-growth economy in Europe. So, as you know, in following business, gross domestic product as a measure of growth has stood as the primary economic objective in Europe, according to the article, and of course this has been worldwide as well. And as economies have grown, so have the negative impact on the environment. And we know that we're exceeding the amount of resources we have on the planet. We're using 1.7 times the amount of the Earth's resources every year, which you don't really have to be a genius at math to know that that is not sustainable in the long run. It's not even possible in the long run. Unfortunately, there's little sign that economic activity is being decoupled from the use of resources or pollution at anything like the scale that's required for us to remediate that. And in a European context, because the article is talking about the European Union, it says that solving social problems within European nations does not require more growth. Rather, it requires a fair distribution of the income and wealth that we already have. And this is true, I would say, also in the West. So, you know, these issues are, we're mirrors for one another throughout the world. And really what this comes down to is that this system, you know, this system of business, this system of economics, of capitalism, whatever you want to call it, this system isn't working. And really, truly, we can't even say that it's working for a few. Now, there's the illusion that the few are benefiting, but the fallacy is that we're all on the same planet together. And ultimately, we are all going to survive and flourish together, or we're all going to go down together, regardless of how much money you have in the bank. It doesn't work that way. So I would say that what we have called growth over all this time is more accurately bloat. And we know that when an organism is bloated or inflamed, it's a sign of poor health. And the fact that our economy has become bloated has led to a decrease in the health of our society. So going back to the article, then it says growth is also becoming harder to achieve because of the challenge of all of these things it's created. Due to declining productivity gains, market saturation, and ecological degradation, growth is becoming harder to achieve. And the response has been to try to fuel growth by issuing more debt, shredding environmental regulations, extending working hours, and cutting social protections. And this incessant pursuit of growth at all costs, it divides society, it creates economic instability, and it undermines democracy. So again, this system isn't working. This pursuit of growth at all costs actually meets that classic definition of insanity, which is that we're doing more of the same thing and expecting different results because we keep thinking that this system is going to improve the world. However, we chronically suffer from mixed results. And it was Buckminster Fuller who said, you never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, he says, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. And that's where we're at because, again, we keep thinking that this system, if we just keep trying harder and keep issuing more debt and keep working people harder, that is ultimately there's going to be some tipping point and things will improve. But instead, we keep suffering from these mixed results, and these results become more detrimental for those who are suffering even harder. Now, the good news is that within civil society and academia, a post-growth movement has been emerging, and it goes by different names in different places. Now, this work suggests that it's possible to improve quality of life, restore the living world, reduce inequality, and provide meaningful jobs, all of this without the need for economic growth, provided that we enact policies to overcome our current growth dependence. Now, some of the changes that have been proposed in this conference this week were curbing resource use by a carbon tax, and that revenue from that tax could be returned as a dividend to the people or used to finance social programs. Introduce a basic and a maximum income to further reducing inequality, and this while helping to redistribute care work and reduce the power imbalances that undermine democracy. Use new technologies to reduce working time and to improve quality of life instead of being used to lay off masses of people and increase profits for the few. Now I'm going to quote from the article here. It says, given the risks at stake, it would be irresponsible for politicians and policymakers not to explore possibilities for a post-growth future. Now, notably, the sector of business is missing from that sentence, and notably, business is largely absent from this effort. And business is not immune. Business is not immune to the negative impact of growth dependence, because again, we all live on the same planet with access to the same resources, and our impacts, especially the impacts of those in business, have a ripple effect, and they touch one another. So it's essential that our business leaders step up and step into their real power as benevolent human beings in order to optimize their power in the business realm as a force for good. So I'll put the link to this article in the comments to the video. This conference just happened this week, and there are two principles in the Conscious Business Declaration at work here, at the very least, in relation to this topic. And one is Principle 2, that in line with the reality of oneness, the purpose of business is to increase economic prosperity while contributing to a healthy environment and improving human well-being, what we might call flourishing. And then Principle 6, business that sees, honors, and celebrates the essential interconnected nature of all human beings and all of life, maximizes human potential and helps create a world that works for all. So there you have it on today's Conscious Business Coffee Break. I'm grateful for everyone who tuned in. Love to see you come in and support just this little bit of work that I'm doing to increase your awareness of what's happening in conscious business. So thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you again next week on Wednesday, 9 a.m. U.S. Central Time for another edition of the Conscious Business Coffee Break. Have a great weekend, everyone.